Hi, and welcome to this tutorial that will look at creating a website mockup for iPhone 6. Of course, you could apply the theory that we learn here across any sort of website mockup on a smartphone, a tablet, or indeed on a desktop computer or a laptop. So the process that we're going to go through here, we've got a background image for our iPhone, and we're going to overlay a wireframe that we've sketched on a piece of paper, and based on the elements in that wireframe, we're going to add things to the screen of our iPhone here, so we can start to get an idea of what this is going to look like. So first of all, I've got the iPhone as a background layer here. I'm going to paste in my scan of my wireframe that I have already got copied to the clipboard. So just edit, paste to do that. And that will include this image here that I've got, the sketch of what I want my website to look like. So obviously the first thing to do is to try and line this up with the iPhone. Unfortunately, these are the same size at the moment, so that's really good. So I need to kind of see where the screen goes. I'm going to just zoom in for this. I need to see where where this edge here matches this edge here. So what I'm going to do is just switch the blend mode of my wireframe layer. Let's just rename that right now. I'm going to switch the blend mode from normal to multiply. So that way I can kind of see through that layer, right? Now this line here, which may be hard to see, let me pull it over the side. This line here needs to line up with there, and down the bottom, the line that runs across here needs to line up with this. So I'm just going to drag these into place here. That looks pretty good. I might just alter the size of my... Oh, actually no, I think that looks kind of fine. Might just leave it there. So we've got the wireframe that's laid exactly, or pretty much exactly over the top of the iPhone screen here. Obviously I don't want all this other ugly stuff around the outside, but I'm going to show you how to deal with that, as well as everything else that kind of might be floating off the edge of our iPhone screen when we create it. So the first thing to do is to create a new folder, and a folder is like a group. I'm going to call this group screen, because it's going to be everything that's visible on the screen. And into the screen I'm going to drag the wireframe. And so you'll notice now that the wireframe's it's tabbed in a bit. It's got this little indent to the left. That shows me that it's sitting inside of screen. Whilst iPhone, it's not indented, so we know that it's not sitting inside of screen. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to apply a layer mask to screen. Now the easiest way for me to do this is actually to turn off the visibility of this wireframe at the moment, because that's kind of cluttering up my screen. So I'll hit the I and turn off the wireframe. Make sure that my screen is selected, and then click this button here to select a new layer mask. And it's going to mask up the screen. So I'm then going to select my polygonal lasso tool, and I'm going to click on the four corners of the screen in order. So it's made a selection that's the shape of my screen. I actually want a selection that's everything outside of my screen, so to do that I can just go to select and select inverse, and that will select everything around the outside of my screen. And now because my layer mask is selected, it's got the little borders around it, I can just make sure that my main color here is black. I can tell it is by looking at that. And I can fill in the outside of the screen. Now you won't notice anything happening just yet because nothing inside of my folder is visible currently. But if I turn my wireframe on, you can now see that while it shows here inside the screen, none of that junk that was kind of around the thumb area is showing anymore. Cool. Let's turn off all of the stuff that's currently on the screen by adding a new layer. I'm going to drag this underneath my wireframe. This can be called white background, and I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to deselect everything and then select everything on this layer and just paste in white. Fill it with white. Cool. So what I've essentially done just then is I've covered up everything beneath my white background that's visible through this mask with white. And so if I turn my wireframe off, you can just see I've got a white screen here, a blank screen. Cool, now everything that we do now, every layer that we add now is going to be above our white background but below our wireframe. So every layer from now on is going to go in between these two layers. So first thing I need is an image, because it looks like here on my wireframe looks like I've got an image that fits in this area. So I'm going to pause my video, go and find an image from the internet and paste it into this document. Alright, so I've found my image now, and all I'm going to do is ensure that my white background is selected, and I'm going to go edit, paste. Now this means at the moment you can see that my image is it's quite massive. It's taking up quite a big space, and I only want it to take up this space here. So I'm going to transform my image by going either Control T or Edit Free Transform. And that lets me transform my image by clicking on these little handles on the corners and dragging them in. I'm going to hold down the Shift key while I do this so that it maintains its proportions accurately. And you can see as I'm dragging it down, I want it to be about as high as these two lines are here. So that's looking good height-wise, but actually it's a little bit too high. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go View, turn my rulers on, and I'm going to drag down a guideline that sits at the bottom of that photo area and one that sits at the top. And while I'm at it, I might drag down another guideline to help guide me for some of the other objects that are on the page, I guess. So every time there's a major horizontal line, I'm just going to drag a guideline down to show me where it goes to. And these guidelines, they're not visible on the final outcome. They're just there to help us kind of see what's going on. So let's just increase the size of that image a little bit. And now I'm going to, on the layer that I'm working on, first of all I need to click on the tick to say that I'm happy with my transformation. And then on the layer that I'm working on, I'm going to add a new layer mask, which is this button just below. And I'm going to select the area that I want to mask off. Make sure that black is selected, and use my paint bucket tool to fill the area with black. Cool. I can go to my select menu and deselect what I've just selected. So now I've got an image on my iPhone, and if I turn off my wireframe and make my guides invisible, actually I'll just use the shortcut for now so you can see them. I can't remember the shortcut. Okay, so the guides are staying on, but you can see that I've got an image here that sits on my phone. So the next thing to do is to think about the other objects that are on here. Obviously I've got this area at the top, which is going to be a navigation bar, and it's got three little symbols on it. So I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to call it navbar. First thing I'm going to do is create the colored background. Now I'm going to make a colored area that's bigger than the navbar, simply because we're already masking, so it doesn't matter if we go over the edges a little bit. Now I need to select a color. I'm going to choose, actually I'm going to choose quite a specific color, so I'm going to double click in my color area here, and because I've already chosen a hex color in my mind, I'm just going to replicate that hex color here. So the hex color I chose I know is 3377cc. And actually I think it was 5577cc. This is a lovely blue color. Then I'm going to get my paint bucket tool and fill this area with blue. Select, deselect, and then I'm going to do the same for each of these little squares along here. So I may as well drag some more guides out. Just move that one there along just a little bit. Cool, so I can create a new layer. Call this squares. And on that layer, I can drag out little squares and fill them with the specific colors that I've chosen. I'm just going to choose some random ones now just to save a little bit of time. Select the next one. Fill it with a color. Select the next one. Fill it with a new color. And so on and so forth. Let's just take a quick look at what we've got so far. So we've got some buttons here. We've got our nav bar, we've got a photograph, and we're still looking at the wireframe that's sitting on top of everything. So I'm going to turn that wireframe off just to see what our web page is going to look like on our phone a little bit more clearly. So that's starting to look good. We could now be adding a little bit of detail into our mockup. So maybe some detail up here on top of the navigation bar, or some detail here on top of some of these image buttons. I'm going to quickly find some files or some images to go on top of these, and I'm just going to paste them in a new layer that sits on top of those squares. So perhaps I'm going to call it icons. I'm going to go to the internet and find those icons now and paste them in, and I'll be back with you in just 1 second. And 1 second later, all of the icons are there. So what remains for us to do now is any kind of potential stuff down the bottom. I'm not going to fill this in completely, but I am going to put some text on there, a layer of text, just so you can see what that might look like. So I'll create a new layer, call this layer text, and on that layer I'm going to use the type tool, and I'm going to drag out a text area here. And before we start, I'm going to change my font. Something really simple. This looks nice. And I'm going to change my color to dark gray because I want dark gray text. And also center align it. And I'm simply going to write copyright extreme entertainment, and then enter, privacy policy, contact, and about. Cool. I'm going to finish that and turn off the wireframe just so we can see what that looks like. Cool. So edit your